Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked, blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, jeez. Dr. Shealy, I've been thinking about this all night. And, before we get into that, is there anything that you'd like to say before I get off on some of these tangents?
Well, one non-tangent, I hope, is I think we should discuss the possibility of civil war.
Okay. I agree with that. I made the comment many weeks ago, probably close to a month ago, that I believe that we are, United States of America, is already in a combination of the Second Civil War and the Second American Revolution, a combination of both of those. Villagers against villagers would be the Civil War component, and the villagers or the government against the villagers would be the revolution component, where the government has declared war on us in many ways. What are your thoughts?
Well, I thought before the election last time that if Hillary was elected, there was a 100% chance of a civil war. Trump was elected, a 50% chance. Now I believe that 50% chance has increased. Okay.
The reason I'm saying that we're already in it is we are burning down, people are burning down cities. They're burning down police departments. They're setting, police cars on fire. And in St. Louis right now, there's an area that is, there's some mansions, some old 1920s magnificent mansions that on the inside, if you looked at them, they would be right up there with Buckingham Palace. I mean, really, really magnificent homes that, you'd have to have several people dusting the house just to keep it, presentable. These are so big. Murals on the walls, paintings on the ceilings. I mean, just decadence beyond belief. And so there were some protesters that decided that, they wanted to go toward the mayor's house, the mayor of St. Louis. And these two lawyers, husband and wife, she had her .45 and he had his AR-15. And they told the protesters just keep on moving. So, what's happening is that the people are taking their protests to the people that matter, if you will. The wealthy who are terrified of mob violence. And that's, we predicted that, weeks and weeks ago. And we said that wanted posters would start appearing. And now we have wanted posters. Political figures have their faces on wanted posters. Now they don't say dead or alive yet, but they do say, wanted and then, for resignation, meaning these people should resign. So there's now class warfare. There's race warfare. There's warfare by the corporations against their customers. There's warfare by the governments against their people with flashbang grenades, grenade launchers, real guns, real cartridges, pepper spray, handcuffs, batons, shields, and weapons of war that have been provided by the Pentagon, like mine-resistant vehicles with machine gun turrets. They're deployed all over the country, and they have been for years. So it seems to me like we're already in the Civil War. I mean, not the end of it, not the middle of it, just the beginning of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the real question, do you happen to know among the gun owners of this country, what percentage are the common sense people like us, and what percent are the idiots?
I would have to say, and this would be a guess, a swag, a scientific wild guess. I would say that the common sense people would probably be 99.999% of us. People who really don't want to destroy life. So that there would be hunters, people who hunt legally, according to the rules of the road. People who don't shoot from the road, people who just don't kill recklessly and carelessly. I would say 99.999%. However, there are some who are absolutely wild crazy, and that's a problem. That really is a problem, because if they are not convicted felons, they can legally buy, the same things that we can buy. They can buy AR-15s, AK-47s, long-range, high-powered hunting rifles. They used to call them high-powered hunting rifles. I'm talking about, 308, 30-06, etc. So there, and that's something that we should probably talk about, Dr. Shealy, and that is the guns. Because one of the things that I have on my list for today is the governments, local governments, that would be the local towns, the local counties, etc., have decided, in cities, they've decided that somebody's got to pay for all this stuff, all this corona panic expenditures that have been recklessly dispersed. Well, as they look for ways to rebuild their coffers, what they're really not looking at is laying off people. So the biggest expense is going to be the staff that we don't need. So they want to keep their staff, they want to keep their empire, and they want to pay for it. So if the federal government isn't going to bail them out and just print some more digits, then the localities are going to have to find a way of getting more. And already they are looking at increasing taxes on, let's say, for sure we know about cigarettes. So cigarette taxes might go from, let's say, and these are rough numbers, $1 per pack to almost $3 per pack. Okay, so let's tax the smokers. That's what they're thinking. And alcohol. Let's tax alcohol because, those are like sin taxes. And then, that's not going to be enough because there aren't enough smokers and drinkers. So let's go after real estate taxes. Now, when that happens, I've said this before and this is my opinion and I still stand by it, that when they start increasing real estate taxes on homes and farms and people start losing their homes and farms to taxes, the real shooting will begin. Because there are plenty of people who have worked really hard for generations to accumulate that property and keep that property. And then if those people that have accumulated that property for generations by hard work and sweat and blood and tears, when they find that their property is on the courthouse steps for sale for taxes, they're probably going to lose it in a big way. And I believe, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just saying this is clear as can be to me, that those are the people like farmers that have guns, high-powered rifles, if you want to call them that, high-powered hunting rifles, AR-15s, AK-47s, ammunition, and the knowledge to use them efficiently. And I believe that what will happen is once these farms and houses and properties get sold on the courthouse steps for taxes, because of the careless and reckless spending by the local governments, the county governments, the state governments, and the federal governments, that the shooting will begin. Because people are going to say, are you kidding me? We have these moronic millennials who are going out partying and having all kinds of fun. They are running up the tab at the hospitals. They can't afford to pay for it, so we get saddled with it. So they raise our taxes and they steal our property. People aren't going to stand that. They absolutely will go ballistic. And every government position will have a target on their forehead. That's my, it's pretty strong statements, right, Dr. Shealy? But I believe that's how it'll play out if they start selling properties on the courthouse steps for delinquent taxes.
Interestingly, yesterday, around the internet came an article stating that the real federal deficit right now is already at $90 trillion.
Yeah. And we've been reporting years ago that it was over 21 trillion, years and years ago. So that makes sense to me. And, Dr. Shealy, I've been reporting here the price of some things. I have noticed that you can buy Chinese junk for about the same price that you used to be able to buy Chinese junk in the good old days. I'm talking 6 months ago or more. Now, if you want to buy good old-fashioned American quality, something, and I've used this as an example. Let's say a battery charger for a car. If you something
now being so simple,
very, very simple, very simple, and a battery charger for a car back 40 years ago was this. It was a case, metal box with some air vents in it, so 4 little rubber feet on the bottom, a little carrying strap, a little meter on the front that measured amperes. Let's say 0 to 20. And then 2 cables with cable clamps and a power cord, a transformer, a copper wound transformer, some rivets to hold it in place, and a rectifier, a half-wave rectifier. Okay, that's it. That's all that was in this case. Maybe an on-off switch. Well, I used to be able to buy those brand new in the box, never used before, for $19.95. Today, if you go to eBay and you want to buy that same unit, it's all banged up and rusty, it's been used for 40 years, 40 years, it will cost between, at least 2x plus shipping and as much as 8x. So typically, you'll find that thing for $80, $80, which used to cost $20. That's because the value of quality products is going up, because people have had it with this Chinese junk. I don't think it's they're boycotting China per se and saying, those guys have delivered this virus to us and it's taken down America. I don't think that's exactly it. I think they want quality, and they've had it with Chinese junk, and the cost of American products has gone up because we're not making them anymore. There's no battery charger manufacturer. I was looking for a compressor last night. One of our instructors is thinking about buying a compressor. I was trying to find one kind of like the one I bought in 1979 at Sears. There's no such thing. You can't buy one. They don't make a quality compressor, air compressor, with a cast iron pump that will last a long time. You can only buy these cheap, junky ones that won't last very long. You can't buy a cast iron compressor pump. It's impossible. They don't make them. So used ones now cost way more than they did when they were brand new 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I'm really serious about that. So that tells me that inflation is here. Real inflation is here. And we're just not seeing it yet. And I believe there are going to be food shortages come the end of this growing season. Dr. Shealy, are you in a drought right now? We haven't had rain for about a month. Have you had rain? Well,
yes, my garden, I'm having to do all kinds of watering already.
So
yeah,
okay.
This is the driest month we've had all year.
Mm-hmm. And now normally in this part of the world, and I know we're jumping around, but these are important points that you can connect the dots on, class. Normally in this part of the world in Missouri, we would go into a dry spell in August.
Right.
We now have it months early. Okay. It's that serious. Our ground is cracked like the desert. I'm not kidding. It's cracked. We'll be right back. Class, Dr. Shealy's with us. Dr. Norm Shealy, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, when I was talking about the real shooting will begin, once they start stealing properties, I absolutely believe that. And the reason is, if you look at like the Finelli family, my family, we've got my grandparents who came to this country, started over. And then my parents picked up from that, and they improved on that situation. They worked hard and saved, didn't squander money. And then you look at Mrs. Finelli and me, we did the same thing. And then you look at our children who are doing the same thing right here at the farm. So it's 4 generations to build what we have here at the farm. And if the government says, hey, listen, I know we prevented you from earning an income. I know we've destroyed the markets, but this virus thing is the reason. And so we're gonna sell your property because we've raised your taxes, and It's too bad that you can't figure out a way to pay the taxes and support all these parasites in the government. So we're going to take your farm. I got to tell you, the shooting will start right then and there. I won't let it happen. I won't let it happen. I will not allow people I don't know to come and steal from us all of our hard work because of their mismanagement. And I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way, Dr. Shealy. I think there's a whole bunch of farmers. I'll bet you there's every single farmer in the country that feels the same way.
Oh, yeah. Well, interesting times, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So interesting, Dr. Shealy. I'm looking at TalkStreamLive.com. This is absolutely stunning to me. TalkStream Live has two metrics that they look at in terms of how well broadcasts are doing. And I clicked on it just to see if anybody's paying attention. We are number 14 in the country right now in podcasts, number 14. We are also being measured live. So people who are listening to us tape delayed, if you want to call it that, we're number 14. If you look at live internet, we are not as high up as 14, but we're in the top, let's say 30, 40%, maybe top 30% in the country. So I think that means that people are really paying attention. They're stopping listening and wasting their time listening to these talking heads. Whereas, they're talk radio and we're not talk radio. USA Prepares is do radio. We teach you what to do. And in that line of thinking, Dr. Shealy, we're talking about the weather. So August is when we would start to feel this, this dry spell or this drought, if you want to call it. The grass is drying. It's turning into dust. Literally, as I walk across the grass, it's crunchy. Now, a month ago, we had nothing but rain. Nothing but rain. It was so wet, the trees were starting to fall over because, actually they were falling over because the ground was so soggy, the root balls were in mud, and the trees are falling over. Now we have to water the trees every day, or they're going to die. I'm talking about the orchard and, those kinds of trees. So this drought is now 60 days early. 60 days. So now the weather patterns are shifting. So it's really hot. And that begs the question, air conditioning. So Dr. Shealy, now I'm being very serious about this. I've talked to a whole bunch of people, and they have central air conditioning in their homes, as many Americans do. But the air conditioning systems are broken. They're not working. They have failed. So now when they need it, their air conditioning systems aren't working. And the air conditioning guys that come for the estimates say, yeah, we can do that. It's going to be $8,000 to fix your air conditioner. Now, 15 years ago, it was $2,000. Now it's $8,000. Because for many reasons. And one is the government. The government has decided that the refrigerant that we used to use in air conditioning systems that worked for years, decades, and we shouldn't be using that anymore. We need to use this new stuff that is really, really expensive, and it runs under high pressure, and it kills the compressors faster, and it causes leaks faster, and it's way worse than anything they've ever developed, but yet the government approves that, and you can't use the old stuff, because the old stuff, well, they think that that's bad for the environment. So now we have people who don't have work. They've lost their jobs. They have no income other than these helicopter 1,200 digits that they send once. And now they have an $8,000 air conditioning repair bill, plus the care and feeding of the air conditioner, which would be the electric utilities, which is probably going to go up as well. Dr. Shealy, when we come back, what do we do without air conditioning? And I'm being very serious. Senior citizens that, are dependent on air conditioning, heart problems, respiratory problems, what are they going to do without air conditioning? Is there a solution that you have, a medical solution for that? And then I have another question that's way worse than that. We'll be right back. Class, I just want to tell you that I'm kind of a stickler for commercials that air on USA Prepares. And in that line of thinking, the agreement that I have with Genesis Communications Network is that if I hear a commercial that appears on USA Prepares, now it would not be a USA Prepares commercial because I've given all those back. I don't have any. But there are commercials that are played by GCN and others. And if I don't like them, I have the right to reject those commercials that play on USA Prepares. That being said, over the years, I've called a number of advertisers. The first time I hear them, I'll call them up and I'll ask to speak to the CEO. I'll tell them I heard the their ad running on USA Prepares on, let's say, Genesis Communications Network, for example. And I did that well over a week ago. And I want to talk to the CEOs. I want to know what they're about, what they're doing. And I have a problem if they won't talk to me. So I've been able to talk to every single one over the years. Every time I've called, I've been able to talk to them. I tell them who I am and why I'm calling. And we just heard a commercial for Mech Tech. It's a carbine conversion company. It can convert a pistol to a rifle and back and forth. So I called and I talked to the general manager, the highest ranking person there, and his name is Mark Allred. And he's going to be on the air on Friday. Now, I don't get paid for this. Normally, broadcasters will charge some amount of money to have someone like Mark Allred on the air, and, it'll be an interview disguised. It'll be an advertisement disguised as an interview. That is not the case here at USA Prepares. I called him because I wanted to know about how it works, and I've got a lot of questions, and I think this is something that you may want to know about. And you may want to get one of these. And I may want to also. So I wanted to know more about it, and I thought you did too. And I thought you had a right to know about what this company does, because it's pretty interesting. It's being able to convert a pistol like a 1911 or other pistols into a rifle by changing the barrel back and forth legally. So that's on Friday, hour number 1, I believe. Okay, so Dr. Shealy, life without air conditioning. I believe that we're going to enter a very hot summer. I believe the grid is going to be taxed. I believe there will be brownouts, which means low voltage conditions. Rolling brownouts, meaning low voltage conditions, keep appearing. And then blackouts, which means no electricity, and rolling blackouts. So not enough electricity to be, they don't have the supply, they don't have the delivery system, so they're going to ration it. You get some, that's enough, you don't get any more, and then we'll move on to the next area. So there'll be rolling blackouts. That being said, I believe that, most people can't run their air conditioners on their generators. So what happens, Dr. Shealy,
interestingly, Vince, I grew up before air conditioning in homes. And when I was in college, I suppose it must have been in my training. But actually, since I finished my training in 1963, I don't think I've ever had an air-conditioned home. In fact, until about 10 years ago, we just had a ceiling fan in the bedroom at night. I happen to like heat, and I don't like to be in air conditioning. Now, I have, for the last 10 years, had a window air conditioner just in my bedroom. I like to keep it down instead of using a fan. But, over the weekend, I just luxuriated in the sun. I worked 3 hours in my garden on Saturday. I lay out in the sun for an hour yesterday. So I like heat, and I don't mind. Now, of course, I'm conditioned. I'm 87 years of age. I've spent at least 67 of those years without air conditioning.
Okay, so when I was growing up, it was the same thing, Dr. Shealy. I was born in the 50s, the early 50s. And, the window air conditioning units weren't very popular. As a matter of fact, central air conditioning wasn't very popular. But I believe back then the sun was not quite as hot as it is today. I don't think that we burned as much fuel to heat up the atmosphere as we're doing now. There weren't as many cars, and there was a little bit more distance between people. But now, on your farm, you've got some trees that kind of shade your house, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I remember. Okay, so that being the case, not everybody has the good fortune of having planted trees that can shade their houses. Some people live in new houses, some people live in apartments, and there's no way that, trees are going to reach the 12th story. So some people are trapped, and, it's not, cities are hotter. If I've measured them, I've gone through cities in the wintertime, and they're 10 degrees hotter than in, outside the city environment. And that's because of all the heat that's dumped into the air around the cities from, the heating systems and the cars and all that, and the black roofs on top of all these, buildings. So the cities are definitely hotter than the countryside, for example, where, there's a lot more grass and trees. That being the case, what do we do, Dr. Shealy, if the electricity goes down and if we have family members who just can't stand it? Do we hop in the bathtub? What do you recommend we do?
yeah, obviously, you could use, wet cloths and help soak them that way. And, I suppose that if with electricity goes, of course, there are not even fans. Until last week, I had an attic fan, which I would use to cool off the house in the morning. Interesting, the attic fan died last week, so I'm not going to replace it. I'm going to get just a big window fan, and that doesn't work. It's adequate because I really, fortunately, don't need that much coolness.
Let me share a couple of thoughts with you about your attic fan. I've never seen your attic fan, Dr. Shealy, but there are a couple of things that can go wrong with an attic fan. And one of them is really, really common. So most motors that drive electric motors, so there's a difference between an engine and a motor. An engine would be something that might use gasoline or diesel fuel. That would be an engine. A motor is electric motor. Most electric motors, whether they be driving a compressor in a refrigerator or a freezer or an air conditioning compressor or a fan, has a capacitor on the side of it. And a capacitor is a cylindrical device. It has two pieces of foil that are separated with a dielectric. Typically, it's like wax paper. And this capacitor on your whole house attic fan might be a capacitor is like less than $20. And what happens is when these fans start, they've got these big, heavy blades that are hard to get moving with a little motor. So extra electricity is provided for the startup of these fans. And the capacitors typically last about 20 years. And then they fail. They all fail. It's just a question of when. 100% of the capacitors will fail. And that they fail on computers. They fail on everything. So they literally dry up with the heat. There's a little bit of moisture between the layers of the conductors or the plates or the foil, and they dry up and they fail. Well, so it's possible that you can have that capacitor replaced and keep that exact same ceiling fan, all the controls, the wiring, everything, just as it is for a $20 capacitor. That's possible. And if you'd like, if you can get me a picture of it, I'll see if I can do the research and figure out which capacitor it might be.
Well, fortunately, our wonderful farm foreman, Joe, I can ask him to do that. He is a remarkable handy person.
Okay. And let me get, since we're mentioning this, I'd like to share this with the class. So there have been instances when people will call up the heating guy or the air conditioning guy. You know, I'm talking about the central air conditioning guy, and the company will say, yeah, well, you know, it's 10 years old, and yeah, those compressors go, and you know, it's actually, it doesn't make any sense to just repair it. So what we'll do is we'll put in a new inside unit, we'll put in a new outside unit, we'll keep the refrigerant lines, we'll keep the wiring, but everything else is going to be replaced. And that's an $8,000 job today. It used to be a couple thousand, and now it's $8,000. Well, it could be as simple as that capacitor failing, which would be a $20 fix, which is, you know, remove the screws on the case of the outside unit. There might be 4, 6, 8 screws, and then there it is, the capacitor. It's held in with a little bracket. It's the size of a toilet, the inner tube of a roll of toilet paper, and has 2 wires on it. And you just simply take the old one out, put the new one in, and you're good to go in many, many cases. So I wanted to share that with our class.
And because I bet our attic fan is 25 years old, so
yep,
I guess
and there you go. So it's the attic is one of the hottest places of a house. And I've taken a non-contact thermometer, Dr. Shealy, and aimed it at our roof in the sun. And I've seen numbers like 160 degrees, 160. That's on the roof. That's on the roof outside. So attic temperatures can get really, really hot. So just wanted to share that with you, that the capacitor, and look it up, class. Just look up air conditioning capacitor, capacitor. And you'll find it. That's a real common problem. But it's the one that the air conditioning guys don't tell you about, because they don't want to tell you that, you know, for $18 or $20, they can fix the problem plus, 15 minutes. They don't want to tell you that. They want to tell you, yeah, 8,000 we'll get you all fixed up for 8,000. Dr. Shealy, there's, we used to use alcohol, right? We'd mix a little bit of alcohol, rubbing alcohol with a little bit of water and use that to cool someone down. Is that something that is still recommended or not if someone is overheating?
I would prefer water personally because, too much rubbing alcohol can be toxic. I wouldn't want to bathe the whole body in it.
Okay, and that was one of the questions I had as well. Isopropyl alcohol, ISOPROPYL, alcohol versus ethanol, ETHANOL. Are they both toxic, or is it just?
Well, all alcohol can be toxic, including ethanol, of course. People get drunk with it and people can die from it. But isopropyl, you wouldn't drink isopropyl.
Mm-hmm. But that's what comes in that bottle. It says 70%, Dr. Shealy, or 50%.
I know. And a little bit, I don't mind, maybe a foot of it on a foot square, but I wouldn't do the whole abdomen of the whole body.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I believe that alcohol was used, I'm talking like in probably the 1920s all the way through, I don't know, maybe the 70s, 60s or 70s. I believe the reason it was used as a dilute liquid with water on a washcloth to cool a person was because it evaporates faster than water does. So it removes heat faster. I believe that was the reason. So here's an interesting question. And, I'm sure you've been asked every single kind of question you can think of about medicine. But maybe not this one. This is horrible. This is horrible, Dr. Shealy. And, so let me set up the story first. So there was this convenience store, gas station kind of a place in Colorado. And a customer came in and there were rules by the state about wearing masks. And this woman was kind of frosted that she wasn't going to get service without wearing a mask. Let me tell you what happened, and then the medical question will follow. And this is really serious, and we need to all be prepared for this. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. If you'd like to go to the website and peruse the offerings, the books, and the supplements, normshealy.com, Norm, as in Norman, Shealy, SHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, I was telling the story, this is a true story, of course, about this, we'll call it a convenience store in Colorado / gas station. You can buy coffee, you can buy soft drinks there, you might even be able to buy things that they sell as food, like hot dogs. And this woman went in there and she had a problem with the store requiring a mask. Okay? At the time, Colorado, that area required that if you're out in public, you needed to wear a mask because of the coronavirus. And she didn't like that idea. So she spit. Yes, she spit on the employee behind the counter. Now, that's something that most people are not prepared for, and that's why I guess you're seeing the plexiglass between the GDP and the employees. GDP as in generally dumb public. Dr. Shealy, is there, and I'm serious about this as a medical question, is there something that we should have with us should someone spit on us? Besides a baseball bat and a .45.
Well, alcohol, of course. Now, there's a place where rubbing alcohol or the hand sanitizer should be adequate to wipe it off.
Okay. So, class, what I'm hearing, and this is what I've been thinking as well, but I wanted to get a medical opinion on this. What do you do if someone spits on you? And so how much time do we have, Dr. Shealy?
Well, it depends on where the spit lands. If it lands on your face, that's a big problem. If it lands on your clothes, well, I would just sloppily wipe it off with hand sanitizer.
Okay. Let's say it lands on one's face. And, let's say there's a possibility that it got on, your lips that were closed. But now it's on the lips. Obviously you don't want to lick your lips.
I would be nice if you had a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, 3% hydrogen peroxide. You could take a quick, big mouthful a couple of times and wash out your mouth and lips with that. But most people aren't going to have hydrogen peroxide waiting to be spit on.
Well, I don't want to go out in public, Dr. Shealy, because of, stupid people like I've been describing. However, I think that will be policy for our family to have a small bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide and water. And frankly, I'll tell you what I would do, class, based on what I've just heard from Dr. Shealy. If I were in that environment and I just got spit on in the face, I would keep my mouth closed. I would take a swig just to rinse, not to swallow, of hydrogen peroxide, dilute hydrogen peroxide, swish it around, make sure I splash some on my lips, and then I'd spit it out right on the floor. And I would do it again, and then I would rinse with water, and I'd spit that out on the floor too.
Right.
That's what I would do. Right
on.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's extrapolate this situation, Dr. Shealy, and let's say it were President Donald Trump who just happened to be in that convenience store. Do you think that that person, let's say he was saying, I'd like to see what it's like to work for a day, and he were behind, and he happened to be behind the counter, and someone spit on him, but the Secret Service were there. Do you think that they would be that woman who spit on the employee would be charged with attempted murder?
I think it's possible. Mm-hmm. Certainly with assault and battery.
Mm-hmm. Assault, and let's define assault. Dr. Shealy, would you like to do that? What is assault versus what is battery?
Well, assault means a dangerous attack to me. Mm-hmm. I don't think it matters how you do it. It's with intent to harm.
Okay, the definition of assault that I've read, and it seems to be a moving target. The words keep changing in meaning. But what I was taught was many years ago. Assault is, you yell at someone. You say, you know what? I'm gonna, whoop you. Maybe a little yelling, a little screaming, a little, waving of hands, but no contact. That would be assault. Battery would be, you actually hit them. Okay. And, physical force applied would be battery. Now, they've changed it. They've changed it so that, some of the guys, some of these police, when they kneel on someone's neck until dead, they say, well, that's an assault. That's way more than assault. That's assault and battery, and attempted murder, if not murder. So the words keep changing, and that's why it's hard. And we've been told by George Orwell that, up will be down, black will be white, words will have changed meanings and won't be able to figure out what's what. And that's what's happening right now. And it's very confusing. Very confusing. So, I think, class, you need to be prepared for someone spitting on you. Whether it be someone who just can't keep the saliva in their mouth naturally or normally versus someone who just hurls it at you, with the full force of their lung power. I think you ought to be concerned about that, have that discussion with your family, and figure out if you want to have the dilute 3% hydrogen peroxide. And let's talk a little bit more about that when we come back. Is the hydrogen peroxide deadly if you swallow it, Dr. Shealy? Let's talk a little bit about, are there any risks with hydrogen peroxide? We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 with Dr. Norm Shealy, medical doctor. Quick update. So tomorrow, Rich Sheben. Wednesday, Gwyneth Isaacs. Thursday, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And Friday, we'll be talking with Mark Allred about converting pistols to rifles by changing the barrels back and forth legally, and then tips from my unpublished book on how I think you'll find what I've got to say on Friday quite interesting. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about hydrogen peroxide, 3% solution, and using that as a rinse, maybe splashing some on our face, not in our eyes, a class. Should we be spat upon by a GDP or some member of the GDP, the generally dumb public, who may or may not have the coronavirus? Dr. Shealy, what would happen if we had 3% peroxide and we put some in our mouth, switched it around, and spit it out. Is it possible we could poison ourselves?
Well, not poison yourself, but you could choke if you inhale it. You don't want to be careful not to swallow it. It can be irritating in the stomach. We're talking about a very small rinse, maybe a tablespoon or so at the most.
Okay. Should we carry a pre-diluted solution? Like, let's say we had a little 1 ounce bottle in our pocket, at the ready. Could we dilute that with, let's say, filtered water or distilled water and, keep that at the ready? Let's say, maybe, an eighth of an ounce of hydrogen peroxide to 7/8 of an ounce of water. Would that be a reasonable
that would be
solution?
strong enough. Maybe 50,
it would not
50.
be? Okay. So 50% of 3% hydrogen peroxide with the other half being distilled water.
Right.
And the reason I mentioned distilled water is because the hydrogen peroxide would react to whatever's in the water, and if it's distilled water, there would be no reaction, correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, how long do we swish that around in our mouth before we spit it out?
Oh, really, just about 3 or 4 seconds.
Okay. Now, if we think that some got on our face, would it be prudent to get some on our hands, pour it, small amount on our hands, splash it on our face, but not in our eyes?
Well, yeah, it would be okay. I would prefer the alcohol, I think, for the hands, because you've got a bigger area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I was thinking about the face, though. Let's say...
Well, the face is okay.
Let's say...
It won't hurt your face if you don't get it in the eyes.
Oh. Okay. All right, so class, these are defensive tactics. And, is it likely that this would happen? I don't know. It's more likely to happen if you go out in public, and people are losing their minds. They're absolutely out of control crazy. And, I think it's very risky to go out in places where people, lose their tempers. I mean, there's a video of a poor guy who's working at Walmart, and he's saying, okay, you're coming into Walmart, you got to wear a mask. And this older white guy decides, no, that's not acceptable, and he's just going to shove this Walmart employee around. It's crazy to me. And Dr. Shealy, I have an opinion on this, and I'd love to hear yours. My opinion is that if a store has a sign that says no guns, you really shouldn't bring a gun into the store. If the store has a sign that says wear a mask, if you're coming into the store, you should respect their wishes and wear a mask. Whether you think it's good or not, I think you should respect their wishes because it's their store. It's their store. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, interestingly, I haven't entered such a store.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones I've entered may say masks are advisable, but I've been in, Summer Fresh half a dozen times, and I guess now not more than 10 or 15% of the customers are wearing masks, although the clerks do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I've been to Walmart's once during all this time, and most of the people, over half, did not have masks.
Okay. And do you know of anyone firsthand, Dr. Shealy, who has tested positive for the coronavirus? Do you know a single person?
No.
I don't either. I know secondhand of people who have. I know people who say, yeah, we have friends, relatives, etc., who have tested positive, but I don't know firsthand. And I was talking with a UPS driver, and I said, do you know anyone who's tested positive? And he said he meets thousands of people, and he doesn't know anybody either. So this is a really strange thing. I still think that the virus is real, but I think it's being used in many ways to manipulate our behavior, including by Bill Gates, who wants to sell us vaccines and who wants to limit the life expectancy of people and reduce it as well as kill people. David in Illinois, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, I can't believe you're not getting rain. We're getting rain. We're only a few hours, probably 15 minutes from St. Louis.
Yeah, you know, we get. I asked Mrs. Finelli, keeps on top of the weather reports, and I was telling her last night. I said, you know, I remember when I was a child and we watched the news, and they would say it's going to rain, and when they said it was going to rain, it rained. If they said it was going to be clear, it was clear. If they said it was sunny, it was sunny. If they said it was going to snow, it snowed. We didn't have like 10% chance of rain. There was no such thing as these partial.
You used to be able to look in the newspaper and see ahead of time what it's going to do, and it was pretty accurate.
I'll up you one even more than that. You used to be able to buy the annual Farmer's Almanac and see when it was going to rain, and that was published a year before. So if you wanted to know if it was going to rain on May 5th, you just looked in the Farmer's Almanac and it would tell you. And it was pretty darn accurate. And now we've had percentages of rain coming every day, but none of it's materialized. So we have like a 20% chance of it raining, but we have zero rain. It's unbelievable. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're getting it because we need rain. But if this continues, I mean, anybody who's planted corn is in tough shape. Anybody who's trying to raise some grass for cows around here is in tough shape because you can't water, 200 acres. You can't do it. It's impossible.
I'm on a hill and I can't mow. I mean, I have to wait till the water dries up. It's up to my ankles sometimes. So
we've had that. Water. We've had that a month ago. We had that, and we had to wait and to, for the fields to dry out. Now the grass is crunchy. And when I say crunchy, I mean it went from green to brown, and when you step on it, you can hear it crunching. I'm talking about the grass going crunchy. And it's upsetting to me. It really is. And cutting your grass when in these conditions is a dumb thing to do. So leave it long.
Yep.
You want to talk about what? The coronavirus?
Yeah, that and a question about, now, we don't use as much peroxide. We carry a lot of alcohol wipes and things of that nature with us and things like that. Even portable nebulizers we carry with us. But we use alcohol mostly. But now somebody told me that peroxide can only last so long and you have to just throw it away. Is there truth to that?
I don't know. I would presume that the bottle says an expiration date on it, and it's probably good for a month or more beyond that. But it probably, if it doesn't, bubble up when you pour it on something, it's no longer active.
Oh yeah, I remember them bubble up days.
David, here's a way you can look at it. So, chlorine, bleach that you buy in those, quarter-gallon jugs. The chlorine is forced into the water, and it volatilizes. And the proof of that is if you put chlorine bleach in a pool, it'll smell like chlorine bleach. And then 2 days later, it doesn't smell like chlorine anymore. So the chlorine has volatilized into the air, and that's why you add more chlorine and more chlorine and more chlorine, because you have to keep adding it because we'll call it evaporates, but it really volatilizes into the air. So the same thing happens with hydrogen peroxide. Over time, it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's what Dr. Shealy is talking about. So,
well, here's my question.
Uh-huh.
How do you prepare for something like that down the road in the future if it has a limited shelf life or something like that could be so useful?
Well, there's no 25-year survival for hydrogen peroxide. I don't know how long the bottle, when they put it on the shelf, how many years or months you've got, but it is not going to last a long time.
Here's a thought, and I have not done this, but here's I think it's a reasonable thought. So if you look at the containers that hydrogen peroxide comes in, it didn't always come in a plastic bottle with a plastic cap. It used to come in glass. And it used to be a brown bottle because the sunlight will cause it to spoil quickly or more quickly. So if you keep it out of the sun, keep it out of the light, keep it at a constant temperature, the package, the container, the bottle will not expand and contract and expand and contract and encourage the volatilization of the hydrogen peroxide in the water solution. Okay, so that being the case, what would happen if we put it in what used to be an old vinegar bottle? Now, vinegar used to come in glass quarts with a small neck bottle, with a metal cap, with a seal. And they didn't leak, but they break if you drop them. So what would happen if we kept it in one of those bottles, and sometimes those are clear, and you kept it out of the light? I'll bet you it would last longer. I'll bet you it would. Because it would be less likely to leak through the cap. That's just my thought.
Incidentally, on the internet it says a 3% hydrogen peroxide solution you can buy has a shelf life of at least 1 year and up to 3 years if the bottle is unopened. Once you break the seal, the hydrogen peroxide will last 30 to 45 days at peak effectiveness with about 6 months of useful activity. So it doesn't last very long once it's open.
Mm-hmm. So here's what we do. When we want something to last longer, we keep it in an area, and this could be somebody's basement. Okay, if you have a basement that's cool and dark, and you have a dehumidifier in there, you'll find that the lack of moisture, the lack of light, and the constant temperature will let all kinds of food last way longer than if you have it, upstairs in the kitchen, let's say, where the temperature changes, seasonally and from morning to afternoon. So constant temperature is important. Lack of light is really important. And lack of humidity, if it's in a box, rather. Class Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. We're talking about the life expectancy, the shelf life of products, and I mentioned cool, dark, and minimize the humidity. And that's another thing. So as we go forward and as the grid starts to break and fail more, we're going to have problems with mold in basements because the dehumidifiers aren't going to be running because they have compressors, and those darn compressors use 400 or 500 watts at a time. And so that's another concern. Dr. Shealy, do you have any suggestions for what do we do if we have a basement and and it starts getting moldy, or how do we prevent mold in the basement? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, that's where I use bleach. We had some leakage during that heavy rain in May.
Mm-hmm.
And once it dries out, you just pour some bleach around.
Okay. Now I'm thinking about the floor joists and the subfloor that you can see in the basement as you look up and on the walls.
Yeah, I haven't had that. I don't know.
That's going to be a big problem, class. You'd probably want to atomize the bleach, or spray it, but then it's a killer. I mean, that's a weapon of war, literally.
Now,
I'm not exaggerating.
What I have done once when I got significant mold in the basement was I just put on a vaporizer with Thieves, Thieves, a mixture of essential oils. That will destroy mold.
Wow, what a great suggestion. Thieves oil with a vaporizer. Okay. And so, do you sell Thieves oil, Dr. Shealy, on your website?
No, we do not.
Okay. What do we look for when we buy, and can you spell Thieves so everybody knows?
Thieves. Now, it's made, that I think the official mixture was made by one of the best known companies, but I mix clove and cinnamon oil. That's what it is, really.
Okay, clove and cinnamon.
Half and half.
50-50. Okay. So Thieves, that's spelled like, elected official, same exact spelling.
Yeah, yes.
David, any comments?
Yeah. Now there's supposedly a paint that you could use to treat black mold that covers it up and kills it. I don't remember the name of it, but one of our relatives used it regularly in his business.
Yeah, I believe it's toxic as well, David. They used to sell an additive. And so if you were going to paint your basement wall, you could put in this mold inhibitor. And I'm not sure exactly what it was. Was it mercury or some form of mercury? But I believe, and you do your own research, class, I may be wrong on this, but I believe it's somewhat toxic because of it, it kills mold. Yeah.
I do have a question for the doctor about this virus. Now, I hope I'm trying to see if I'm misunderstanding here. I know you sometimes say it's like mention that it's somewhat of like a fake pandemic type situation. Is it just because that the government is so questionable about their information they're giving it to us but this is real. You believe that there's something going around, but it's just the information we're getting.
I called it the fake epidemic, and the plan, PLAN, FAKEDEMIC, I think is a political ploy by the leftista evil empire.
Well, I was just curious. I just wanted to, because that's what I thought I just wanted to make sure, because I hear so many people out there saying that this is fake, and I'm like, how could you say this is fake when we see in pictures of people in hospitals everywhere? I don't think that's really something I would want to go do. But you brought up about
every statement the FDA and the CDC have made has been contradicted by other statements.
Right. And that's what, you can't get nothing clear. And even if you go back in the college days, if you're in the medical field, they seem to have more information and clear, concise information back then than they are now about this situation.
We have been lied to every way you can possibly think of about this coronavirus. And nothing can be believed. The president can't even make up his mind for one whole day at a time. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. David is with us in Illinois. And David, I've been trying to find out the chemical composition of these mildew sides. Mildew, CIDE, meaning a material or a chemical that will kill mildew, mold, fungus, etc. And it's difficult to find out the chemical composition of mildew sides. And I'm sure that's on purpose. So, these, let's ask Dr. Shealy. Dr. Shealy, insecticides kill insects, pretty well, right?
Yeah, I don't think it would kill mold, but I don't know.
No, but what I'm saying is if in a low concentration, insecticides kill insects. Yeah. And obviously if they kill insects, there would be some kind of harm to people, right?
Exactly.
So
insecticides are serious danger.
Mm-hmm. So my concern is if it's an insecticide or a mildewcide or other kind of killer for plants and animals, herbicides as well, I'd be concerned about them being harmful to people. So that's why I wanted to mention to David and the rest of the class that, it might be fun to put a mildewcide in paint so that you don't have mildew and mold growing on your paint. But if it kills the mildew, it could be harmful to you. But also, if you have mildew growing, that could be harmful too, right, Dr. Shealy?
Right. Fungus among us is a problem.
Yeah, so what we really need is houses made out of stainless steel with a drain. And so you can, take your pressure washer and clean the walls and the basement and just pressure wash everything off and let it go down the drain. But we really don't have that. So there are some problems with mold and mildew and dampness, and we have to pay close attention. And these are big problems, because if you have a house, if you buy a used house and it has mold problems in the wall, the way that's typically remediated is they take the walls out. Now think about that. So if you buy a house that's been flooded, let's say there's only maybe a foot of water in the first floor. the appliances are all ruined. The refrigerator, the freezer, the dishwasher, the washer, all that, they're all ruined. And, so the wiring, has been compromised. So what they do is they rip all the sheetrock off all the walls. They take it out and then they spray it down with a chlorine type, chemical to kill the mold. And then, they put walls back on, or they demolish the whole house. It's a big problem. So you might want to keep that in mind. Well, as we go down this corona panic, environment, it's just getting worse by the day, Dr. Shealy. The current numbers of the infected right this second in just in the United States is 2,600,000. That's infected cases. And then the deaths are, an eighth of a million, 128,000 cases. So where's all this money coming from? You know, you get these 2,600,000 cases. Obviously, those people are being treated at some level. Where is all of this money coming from? Well, it's being borrowed from the future. And, there's going to be payments due. And when that comes, it's going to be, in my opinion, through inflation and taxation. And it's going to be unbearable. Absolutely unbearable. People aren't going to work. They're not driving their cars. We've got this make work. And then we have this, Dr. Shealy, how do we live with this? I mean, the government says, shut down, businesses, shut down bars, restaurants, etc. Okay. I don't go to bars, so it doesn't affect me, but some people can't stay away from them. Well, okay. So they shut them down, then they open them, and then they shut them down, they open them, and they shut them down again. These businesses cannot, there's no way they can make it in this kind of environment. It's impossible. They could hardly make it before. I
think maybe once or twice in my late college years, I might have visited a bar. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a place I frequent. Yeah. But the point is, this to me is the benefit of autogenic training events. Way back in 1972, when I practiced autogenic training twice a day for 3 months, I trained my brain to detach from those things I cannot change. And it does take repeated practice. But now I spend more time detaching than I do attaching. I just let the stuff that I can't change pass through without attaching myself to it.
One of our boys has a saying, and I'll mention something to him, and we'll be in the kitchen, let's say, and he'll be just chatting, and I'll say something to him, and he'll look at me, and he'll say, "It's not my problem," and I'll just keep doing whatever he was going to do.
He's right.
Would you say that is detachment?
Yes. That's a good detachment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now,
and
obviously, if a car's, if you're in the middle of the highway and a car's coming at you, you can't detach.
Right.
But for the stuff you cannot change, like the weather, like the government, like the news, well, detach. Who cares? Not mine.
And that's what we've been saying here at USA Prepare. So, we cannot fix this. We cannot fix the protest, the plundering. We cannot fix the damage. It's best to get out of the way. And we've been recommending for about a decade now that if you live in a city, you gotta be crazy. If you live in a city, you should be, you should have gotten out. If you haven't gotten out, what are you waiting for? I mean, we've said all these things are coming. I don't think people believed it. I don't think people believed that you wouldn't be able to buy toilet paper and soap. I don't think people believe that, the electricity would become flaky. I don't think they believe that. I don't think they believe that the Chinese supply chain would ever have hiccups or stop. But here it is. Here it is. So what are you going to do without your Chinese phones when they start failing because the batteries are not replaceable? What are you going to do about that, class? Well, do you really have to have that phone? The answer is no, you don't. You really don't. I don't have one. It works great not having a cell phone. And when people say, "What's your cell number?" I look at them like, "What's the matter with you? What makes you think I have a cell phone?" It's not a point of embarrassment. where I don't have one. It's a status symbol to me to not have a cell phone. Because I'm able to figure out how to live without one. Honestly, really, I don't have one. I do not have a cell phone. And I don't want one.
I'm with you.
And every time I talk to CenturyLink, when I complain about where the internet went, have you seen my internet? Because I don't have it. And I complain and I demand refunds for lack of service. They always say the same thing. I just to make sure it's you, I need the last 4 of your social security number. Okay. And I give that to them. And then they say, and I need your cell phone number in case, we need to contact you. And I go, I don't have one. I don't have a cell phone. I go, oh. They keep asking me that every time I call them. What's your cell phone number? And I tell them I don't have one. And they say if I want to contact them, if I got a problem, I can use the internet. The only reason I call them is because the internet's down. And I can't use the internet to tell them the internet's down because the internet's down. If we are, when this gets worse, we're going to go off the air. If we don't have the internet, we can't broadcast. It's as simple as that. No one can, except local. That's the only thing you can do is have local radio the way it used to be back, up until maybe the 1990s, maybe the year 2000. Dr. Shealy, do you still go into the studio on Thursdays?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's what you'll have to do for radio, and it'll all be local. Without the internet, there'll be no national news. You'll only be able to talk about what's happening in your little locality. Period. That's it. All news will be local. And I don't know if that's so bad. I think that's okay. Dr. Shealy, would you share for just a minute or so or two what you do on the radio, how long you've done it, and how people can listen to you?
Well, I've been doing it since 1988, and I do it every Thursday from 2 to 3.
And that's how we met, class. That's how I met Dr. Shealy. He was in the studio at KWTO. That stands for Keep Watching the Ozarks. AM 560. AM radio, low on the dial, long traveling signal, big station in Missouri. And I think it was built around 1933, if I'm not mistaken. Real tall antenna with a really good ground field, so it travels pretty far. So Dr. Shealy was on every Thursday from 2 to 3, and he would be in the studio when I was getting ready to go in the studio. So his broadcast would end at 3 o'clock Central Time in the afternoon, and mine would start at 3 o'clock Central Time. So he'd be getting out of the chair, and I'd be getting in the chair, and we would cross paths, and after a couple times, we started chatting, and I learned who Dr. Shealy was, and then we've been broadcasting ever since. David, any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
Yeah, well, the doctor situation, I was going to ask him another question, a medical question. Now, I've been given these EpiPens. I only had one bee sting bite when I was a kid, and it gave me one hell of a mess, so they had me carry these EpiPens. And they expire all the time. But I just take them and I throw them in my first aid kits when I replace them because they're all sealed. So those should still be okay in case there's an emergency. My philosophy is it's better to have something, even if it's somewhat diluted in time, and if you need it, instead of nothing.
I agree.
Okay, because I hate to throw them away. They give them to you, and I'm not going to shoot myself up with them. My wife's going to have to get the pleasure of that, and she practices, I think.
Oh man, have you ever been shot with an EpiPen, David?
God, no. Hey, I've seen some needles that were the size of javelins they put in me, and that hurt. So I don't know how much they hurt, but
Dr. Shealy, can you explain what an EpiPen injection is like, please? Did we lose Dr. Shealy?
I'm sorry?
Can you explain what an EpiPen injection is like, how it's done?
Well, it's epinephrine. It's the same as a shot from your adrenal glands, essentially. And it does, protect you in certain cases of extreme shock. Mm-hmm. Like if you happen to be extremely allergic to a wasp sting, for instance, that kind of thing.
And this is delivered by a gas-powered injection device. So I got one of these. I had a severe reaction to a contrast dye. I mean, I went into to shock, and the nurse came around with this little thing, and she slammed it right through my blue jeans into, I don't have much fat on me. I'm only 136 pounds today, so there's not much fat on Vinny. And when she slammed me, it went right, I felt like it went right into my bone in my leg. It was really painful. So I don't recommend, taking joy rides with these things. Dr. Shealy, I've got a medical question for you regarding plasma. So here in the United States, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but here in the United States, you can, a person can give blood to a hospital, the Red Cross, a blood bank, or a plasma center or a blood donation center, and some people get paid for providing blood. So $20 to $50 they get paid for giving blood, and some people do it to pay bills, literally. And some people are risk takers. They do things that I would never even consider doing, and they sell their blood to pay some of their bills. Now, do you have any concerns about people selling their blood, who they are, maybe their health conditions and what is asked of them before donating blood, to make sure that, at least questions are answered.
If you're unhealthy, if you don't have plenty of blood, if you're borderline anemic, but if you're doing it in good faith and you're healthy as sin, it's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Now, not everybody who donates blood is healthy, right?
That is true.
Not everybody who donates blood is free from HIV or cancer.
That is correct.
Not everybody who donates blood is not on medications like antibiotics and heart medications and other medications like Prozac and so the problem is that we don't know. We really don't know what's in the blood. Now, would you take blood from somebody else, Dr. Shealy?
Not electively, but if I was in desperate shape, yes.
Okay. So if you were in a hospital and the doctor said,
I don't have a choice.
So what if the doctor said, well, look, I think we ought to do this, but you don't have to. There's a possibility that you'll be fine without it, but we think it'd be better if you had it. How would you respond to that? Would you say okay, or would you say, if you don't think I have to have it?
I guess I'd have to say yes.
Okay, but that's only if the doctor said you had to have it, right?
Right.
But if the doctor said it'd be good if you had it, but you don't have to have it, would you have a different answer?
I would probably say no, thank you.
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you, and that would be my response. And we've had family members who have had surgery, and we've asked, okay, so surgery's going to be in a month. We would like to give our blood, because we actually know where that comes from, for our family member. And sometimes the hospitals say, yeah, that'll be fine. Other times they say, yeah, well, it won't make any difference. I mean, you can give blood, you put 2 units in, and you can take 2 units out, but it's not going to be the same 2 units. It's going to be somebody else's, because it's too hard to figure out, where yours went and tracking it and all that. It's so complicated. And ridiculous answers like that. But that's what we've heard. And if I were having surgery and I were healthy, and let's say it were elective surgery, I'd want to have my own blood. That's what I'd want to do. How do you feel about that, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely. Same.
Okay.
I mean, I want to be very, very careful.
And can you get diseases from other people's blood, Dr. Shealy? I mean, let's say someone has cancer.
Blood?
Yes.
Of course. Any viral infection can be transferred. If you had an acute bacterial infection, it could be transferred. Presumably fungus be.
Yeah. David, any questions or thoughts?
Well, that's where I was thinking is if you knew ahead of time for a scheduled procedure, why couldn't you donate your own blood ahead of time?
Well, in Virginia, they had a word for that. And that word was used to could. You used to could. And I don't know if you still could. Maybe you might could now, but you used to could. And I really don't know if, with all of our modern technology and sophisticated computers, if we now have the ability to do what we used to be able to do with paper and pencil. So we used to be able to do that. And I'm not so sure.
Hey, I have a question to ask the doctor.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Now, all your years, I hear you try to escape from things you can't do anything about. But all the years I spent around with research doctors and cops, they were the jerk. They're just jerks to anybody. But now, what would you do if you were driving down and you seen somebody that needed help? Would you get out and help them today? Because a lot of those guys that I've seen in the research doctor are like, I'm not bothering that person. They ain't going to be able to pay the insurance or pay this or that, and they just leave them. So I'm just wondering if...
Well, it depends on the circumstance. If I think it's safe, I would do it. If I didn't think it was safe, I would have to move on.
Dr. Shealy, we had an expo, and we had a guest who passed out, absolutely passed out. And we had some nurses and we had some doctors, and that guy got so much attention so quickly. I mean, everybody ran to help this guy. Everybody. I think you were on an interview on a radio station at the same time that happened, but there were several doctors there. There was the dentist there. I mean, this guy got rapid response, and by the time the ambulance came, they had him all fixed up. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much. David, thank you.